this has been something on my mind for quite a while, but I think I haven't been in the right space to do it until now. So I think everything is just kind of playing out the way it needs to. So I'm rolling with it. I'm going to try and be pretty specific about things without being too obvious of who I'm talking about. I would like to preface, when I talk about things I've gone through, that it is people in my inner circle, meaning my very close friends, relationships I was in, close family, but just kind of leave it at that.
Yeah.
I'm not here to air out their dirty laundry. That's
Absolutely.
not fair. In my story is I, for a while was feeling very much the victim role, and all of these things would happen. I have multiple of the big traumas that you would think of. I have multiple of those experiences, and I'm just no single person should have to deal with all of these, not one or two, but all of these. This is crazy. But what I kind of came to realize is I can't help others if I don't understand what they're going through.
Yeah.
So it's almost like I feel like I had to go through all the different kinds and scenarios so I can touch a broader group of people, if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does.
That I feel like I have to give back. I'm so grateful for those lessons I've learned and the growth that has come, and the growth that is to come in the future, because I'm not by any stretch done in my journey.
Sure, yeah.
But with that gratitude, I think it has made me feel like I need to give back and help others who, because it's just such a lonely, you feel like no one else understands, no one else gets it.
Yeah.
It's tough. But now I feel like I can get people on a very emotional level with a whole array of traumas, to be honest.
Well, no, you feel like you have the tools now.
Yeah.
And you want to show other people those tools.
Like I said, I'm not claiming to be a pro at this by any stretch.
No, and I don't think you are claiming to be at all. I don't think you come off that way.
Hey friends, welcome. I am so glad you're here. I'm Tracy Frame, and you are listening to Multiform PTSD, because PTSD has no uniform. We're going to be talking about non-military focused post-traumatic stress. Bring awareness to this section of post-traumatic stress and be there to bring awareness and support to other survivors, as well as our support systems. So buckle up. Thank you so much for being here. Let's do this.
Hey, Tracy.
Hey.
So you came to me a little while ago and asked me to help you with a project of yours that I'm really excited about, and I think is amazing, and it's going to do so much good for so many people. So I'm very honored and humbled and excited to talk to you about this. But if you could, why don't you kind of talk us through, first of all, you wanted to talk about PTSD and how it's affected you or people around you, and kind of some of your experiences and where you think that PTSD came from for you, and how you've kind of dealt with it throughout your life. Do you want to kind of break it down for people and let people know why you felt you could be helpful, or why you felt like this was something that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I would love to. I am speaking out on PTSD with more of a focus of non-military PTSD, because I am kind of taking the approach of not the textbook approach, but, kind of the school of hard knocks, what I know, what I've learned. So I've not been in the military. I've not experienced that side of trauma, and the military have great programs for PTSD and such. So I can't help much there because I haven't experienced it. I can give you a whole bunch of facts and stuff, but that's not what I'm about. So I focus more on non-military PTSD, not because I don't think it's important. I am very grateful that there are programs for military. I'm a huge supporter of our military, but I don't feel like I can bring anything to the table that they can't get somewhere else, maybe even better.
Okay.
I also, in my dealing with my own PTSD, have found there's a lot of misconceptions out there. People don't like talking about it. You start talking about PTSD and anxiety and depression, people's, lips start to pucker. Like they don't know what to say. They don't know how to react because there's just this stigma. Like we don't talk about it. And it's a real thing. And there's a couple quotes that I have found, and they just really hit me. And I think that's really why I went down this road. One is, PTSD is not a mental illness. It's a psychological injury. That just was like, holy cow. Like there is literal injury in our brains when these traumas happen. And that's why we react the way we do. And so it's not, it's a mental illness. Yes, I think there's a degree to that, to be honest, but it's more of an injury than anything. Mm-hmm. It's not about what's wrong with someone. When someone has PTSD, what's wrong with them? It's not about that. It's about what happened to them.
Yeah.
I've kind of caught this phrase that, PTSD has no uniform. And it kind of goes back to the whole military thing. As a nurse, I have experienced PTSD from traumas that I've been a part of in the hospital. We take that home. It affects us way more than we ever let anybody believe. But there's just a lot of different, it's not just for military. And I want to bring more awareness to that. Because when people think of PTSD, they think of, oh, yeah, my brother came home from the war and had flashbacks. And is that what you're talking about? What war did you go to? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I've been in battle. I've been in war, but it's been internal or with loved ones.
Yeah.
So it's different. I just wanted to try and touch maybe some of the less recognized forms, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Do you feel like, I know you brought up a lot of misconceptions that you've seen regarding PTSD. Do you feel like that's something that you've kind of experienced yourself, that people always think it's just military? People don't realize that it's just, or that it's not just military, that it's something that can be caused by, car accidents,
right,
deaths of a loved one, that, even natural deaths, or like you said yourself, you're a nurse, you deal with traumas every single day.
Right.
When you talk to people about that, when you tell them, no, PTSD can come from any of these things, what do you find that their reaction is?
There's a mix. When you originally first asked the question, what came to my mind was, and this is, I think, another reason why I'm very passionate about it, when I had kind of a mental breakdown of sorts, I really was in the depths of working through some things. Mm-hmm. And I went to my first counselor, and I say first because it didn't go past the first visit, because this man didn't even hear my story. And he proceeded to tell me how he had worked with prisoners of war and people who had had limbs shot off in war, and the typical what you think of military with PTSD. And he looked at me and he said, I've seen way worse than anything you could come here and talk to me about. He called me a coward, said that was a coward way out, and that I needed to suck it up and deal with it because there's people out there who've had it worse.
Oh, wow, that's terrible.
That was my counselor.
Yeah, that's.
And I was like,
really
this is against everything.
Yeah. That's.
Now, that being said, prisoner of war, and those are things, again, I know nothing about. I am not comparing the two, but trauma is trauma, and we all react to trauma differently, but similar, if that makes sense. That's kind of an oxymoron, but
no, not at all. It makes perfect sense. I mean, everybody deals with trauma, and we're all given a brain that kind of works. We might not process things the same way, but it works in the same way, and the parts of the brain that process trauma are the same. And so We have the tools.
And there's damage to those parts, no matter what the trauma is. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that is another part of me why I'm so passionate, because everyone's trauma is real to them. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's okay to negate other people's traumas and how they're struggling to process through them, if that answers your question.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you put it really really beautifully, really eloquently. That's just terrible that somebody made you feel like it wasn't okay to feel. I think that happens far, far too often. Mm-hmm. I hope in the last 2 years or so, it's starting to happen a little bit less. I hope, and I think I've seen some growth as far as the way we deal with trauma, mental illness, PTSD, injuries, things like that. But there's plenty of work we can still do, and I think this is a great start. I think you're making a great effort to bring light to this. And
appreciate that.
I just kind of want to ask, specifically going back to being a nurse, and how this counselor kind of, his words probably affected you well into your career. Obviously they've affected you, well into your life. How do you, and not even just as a nurse, but how does PTSD affect you day to day? And how do you cope? Do you compartmentalize? Do you vent? Do you, what tools do you use to deal with your own PTSD?
I would love to tell you that I've got it all figured out, and I do this and this and this every day without fail. I'm just going to preface this now. Anything that I say after this is what I have found works. It doesn't mean I am 100% perfect at it. I'm still in the process of, and this is a great reminder for me. When you ask specifically as a nurse, first we call it a code situation. When someone is on the verge of passing this world and we are doing CPR and administering meds and doing everything we can to try and save your life, we call that a code. Code blue, you might hear on like TV and stuff, which TV shows are horrible examples. But my first one was a very young child.
Oh my gosh.
And it was my first one. And so your first one is always scary anyway, but it affected me. In my daily life, I'll be like, okay, Nurse Tracy wants to say this, or I'll say to deal with a certain situation, I'll say, I got to put my nursing cap on for this one, because I do kind of compartmentalize, because in that moment of someone is getting ready to pass the other side and we're fighting, that is not the time where I can panic or cry or be sad, or I have to use my brain. I have to be smart. And I'm not saying I always am, but you have to have your head about you. So you just kind of like wipe everything out and you take it one step at a time, and you just think it through and you do what you need to do. And unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't happen the way you want it to. Sometimes it does, and you celebrate those, but sometimes it doesn't. There's a couple that I will never forget. It affects me still today. And so it makes me that much more in the moment with every other code, because I remember how the family reacted or how I reacted. I mean, I got to tell you, after every code, I am in the moment. I'm fine. I'm good. It's afterwards, after all the paperwork's done, after everything is said and done, and I've comforted family or, done the paperwork, you'll find me in the supply room bawling. I laugh. It's not funny. A lot of times look as nurses like we don't care what's going on in the situation and that we're very callous about it. We are not. We are not. We are just in survival mode, and it's your loved ones' survival mode. And that is our number one priority. Nothing else matters at that time. With PTSD, you can be fine 1 minute and something triggers you that you can't anticipate or expect, and you can flip instantly into a panic attack or you kind of disassociate and just kind of like zone out completely, and you're in a whole different place. And sometimes just actually the other day it happened. I was driving to a restaurant to go have lunch or dinner with a couple friends, and all of a sudden it was like I didn't know where I was going. And I have been to this place a million times. I knew exactly where I was going. Something triggered. My guess is the song that was on the radio, but it was a trigger, and I didn't know where I was going. And I had to, what I would say, put my nursing hat on. It literally, you just have to slow everything down, think it through, and just one step at a time. Because if you look at the whole elephant, you can't eat the whole elephant, right? But if you look at it, one bite at a time, first you're going to go after the foot, and then you're going to go after the tail. If you do it bit by bit, it's accomplishable.
You brought up triggers. Do you recognize your triggers, or are they kind of something you're still learning? And when something does trigger you, what does that PTSD look like? How does it manifest itself?
Okay, good questions. I'm doing much better at knowing what my triggers are, seeing them coming, and even try to avoid some of them. Mm-hmm. But you can't avoid all of them. You can't. So you do have to learn how to process through when triggers happen, because life happens. Some of my triggers, I have kind of a wide range of traumas. So like my triggers are very different. Mm-hmm. Okay. It just depends on what it's triggering. If there's like a movie and there's like a really loud bang, I'm the one that's jumping in the movie theater. Or I've even screamed once with a really loud noise, because things have happened in abusive situations that really just have me on guard. Let me think. Anytime I feel like there is a slight chance of abandonment, or, someone might be lying to me. But the problem is, obviously those things aren't right, but because of the trauma, I see things where they're not there. The sign where it's really not there.
Like oh,
they're going to abandon me. They're going to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying, yeah.
And there really is zero reason for me to think that, but it just comes with it. I will get dizzy if I start feeling a trigger, and I've been known to pass out even. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I do get the flashbacks. I have to be careful with what movies I watch, the songs I listen to. If they're talking about, love, breakups, death, weddings, suicide, bullies, what song and movie isn't about at least one of those, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not that I can just never watch a movie or listen to music again, but I have to kind of see how I'm feeling. And if it's starting to put me in the wrong direction, I change it. And I change it to a comedian or something very uplifting or inspirational. I'm very intentional with what I listen to and watch, and what I kind of, my inputs, I guess, even to the amount of exposure I get to certain people. Some people bring out the best in you, some bring out the worst in you. People can be a part of the trauma. And so, you want to limit their access to your life if you can, if not completely eliminate them completely. It just kind of depends on who they are and what you can do. But, when anything breaks, a plate falls off the counter and breaks, breaking glass, breaking windows, mirrors, it's a trigger for me, man. Because again, in abusive situations, it brings me right back there, and it brings me right back there.
Yeah.
And it's not always, like flashbacks you see on TV, but it's just the feeling, like the fear and the trembling. And I will start to shake as if I'm in that unsafe situation, when really I just dropped a plate on the floor and it broke.
Yeah.
But it will trigger feelings like I was back in the car with my very abusive significant other at the time, and he's punching out the windows and his rearview mirror. That's what I hear. I'm back there. And even if I'm not visualizing that scene, I'm feeling those feelings.
Yeah, it really does.
My goodness. I could give you a list a mile long of things I do to try and work through them or prevent being triggered or working through triggers or arousing those trauma feelings, I could do a whole probably 5-hour thing on that in and of itself because I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that everyone find what works for them. But in general, I mean, any kind of physical activity. And when you're at the bottom of the bottom, I've been there where it's like, I don't even want to get out of bed. So I'm not going to go to the gym and run on the treadmill for an hour, right? You just have to just step out a little bit and do 5 minutes of stretching. If that's all you can do, it's a win. Or just go outside, take a walk, enjoy nature, whatever you can do just to be a little active, get out of the house, get out of your head, get that body moving. It helps your body process a whole lot better than if you're just laying in bed doing nothing, which I've done. Then after you get past the I don't even want to get out of bed part, then you can start going up to, okay, now I'm going for a mile run, or I'm going to do a workout video today, or I'm going to do some yoga. Like you just got to get active and kind of get out of your own head and just get your body moving. I don't know what it is about it that's so therapeutic, but it is. And wherever you're at in your spectrum, you work with it. I think talk therapy is important. I think it's important to find the right person to talk to. It could be a counselor. It could be a psychiatrist. It can be, your pastor, preacher, or a support group, whatever it is. I think it's important that we give those traumas a voice and let them out so they're not stuck inside. That's kind of deep maybe, but
no.
I think it's important.
Yeah, I think that's not too deep at all. That's what works for you,
Right.
Keep going.
And medication. A lot of people, look down on medication. It makes them weak, or people are weird if they're on medication, or they're, quote unquote, crazy if they're on medication. No, they're darn smart and trying to maintain and trying to.
Yeah.
That's exactly if that's what you need to do, then that's what you got to do. Now, there was a time in my life where the medication was a little more than what I'm on now, but it doesn't have to be that way forever. That was just to get me out of crisis. And I'm all for it. Do not take what you don't need, because the side effects can be awful too. But if you need it, you need it. It's just realizing where you're at and what works for you. I found in this process, being creative is something that's important to me. And I didn't realize it until this. I learned that I can semi-draw. I like to sketch. I journal draw. When I'm struggling with something, I will kind of draw it out and get it out on paper that way. Sometimes I write. I'm in the middle of trying to write this book. And so sometimes I'm writing it out. Sometimes I'm drawing it. Sometimes I'm finding that perfect playlist to just sing and dance to get it out that way. But being creative is something that helps me. And I had no idea. Literally, I had no idea how important it was for me before that.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And cleaning. I don't know what it is about cleaning, but it's very therapeutic.
That actually is that's cleaning also helps me a lot too. That's so odd.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's not odd. I guess it makes a lot of sense. It's kind of a release, and you're making things better around you, in a way. Mm-hmm. You're literally picking up clutter around you.
Right. And organizing it, making sense of it, getting rid of the toxic or what you don't need or want.
Mm-hmm.
And you're organizing the rest into its proper place. I mean, I think that's pretty metaphorical, but I think it applies.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
I have a ton more, but I can't give you all my secrets all at one time.
It was nice to hear that come out of someone else's mouth.
Yeah. And cooking, cleaning and cooking.
Okay.
My mom will be like, okay, you're cleaning or you're cooking. What are you working through? Like, are you okay? And I'm like, yep. I think another part of coping is figuring out what doesn't work. But it always seems to be what a lot of us go to first, like the drinking or the random, sex or drugs or, whatever those bad smoking, whatever those habits are, I don't know why we do this, but we almost go to those first.
Yeah.
And those are going to make it worse every time. And I've been there. You convince yourself that it's how you're working through it. It's how you're coping, but they're not good coping mechanisms. And in reality, it might make things a whole lot worse. So it's learning what works. It's learning what you have to stop doing and replacing it with the good. Take out the toxic, take out the bad, bring in the good. Because if you don't replace the bad habits with good habits or positive enforcements, you'll turn back to the bad ones because it's what you know. And there's this empty space that you don't know what to do with. They have to kind of replace the not so healthy options with going for a run, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah. How do you think you got to that point? Like, what was the aha moment for you that took you from, self-medicating to realizing that using other tools was maybe more helpful?
Oof. I am going to be pretty raw and real here. Honestly, it's when I had my mental breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a really bad place in my head. And there towards the end, I remember talking to a friend saying, like, what am I doing? This is not me. When I started coming out of it, I was like, I have got to find better coping mechanisms or I'm going to be right back in this place again. And when I hit that rock bottom, it was, I am never getting to that point again. I am now a mother. I now have loved ones and a purpose in life. I have people who depend on me. Like, I can't get to that point anymore. And it was just having to be real with myself and be like, you know what? It's time to learn some new coping mechanisms. Is why I also want to kind of bring awareness to it, because I don't want that to be everyone's aha moment. I don't want people to get to that point that I did in order to be able to turn things around. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think it's a really great thing that you're doing to try to help or be preventative or proactive. I think is the right word. You're being proactive about telling your story for the benefit of others. So it absolutely makes sense. And I think it's a wonderful thing that you're doing. And I am personally glad that you're doing it. And I have so many questions. I know you're very open, and I think that's what's most helpful about you is how willing you are to be raw so that other people can benefit. That's an incredible quality that you have. And actually,
it's a new learned one, let me tell you.
Well, it suits you well, and it does kind of bring up kind of a question for me. Okay. Going through all of this, and we did talk about this a little bit, but how do you view or, feel about what you've gone through with PTSD now that you recognize it? What has it taught you as far as how to recognize it for other people or to deal with it or to kind of offer your, shoulder to cry on, so to speak?
Right. Because one of the things, I've got a list of 10 things not to say to someone who has PTSD or anxiety, kind of a thing. Like, this is what you don't say. And one of them I would say is, oh, you'll be grateful for this later. You're going to come on the other side of this and you're going to be grateful for that experience. Mm-hmm. It's true. Like you asked, I absolutely 100% am grateful for the lessons I've learned in the traumas. No, I'm not grateful for the traumas, obviously, but the lessons are huge. I am very grateful for those lessons because of that gratitude. I think I feel obligated is not the right word, called maybe, to share that, to share what I've learned, because for so long, I kind of was in victim mode. In transparency, a lot of the major traumas that you can list that people can go through to get PTSD, I can mark off a ton of them. And for a while, I had this victim mentality of, why me? Why do I have to go through this and this and this and this, all at the same time? Like, I am not Job. I am not anyone special, or so I thought at the time. Like, why am I being tested? Why do I have to go through all of this? I think a lot of it is so I can now speak out on many different levels and many platforms and many different areas of trauma, not military, but many others, and be able to sympathize and be able to talk open about it and be real about what it felt like, how it was, how I got there, how you feel, how to help someone through those different traumas. I'm not using textbook to answer questions. Does that make sense? Yeah. I'm not, it's real life and it's raw, and it's a lot of times the things I might say is not something that you're going to find in a book. Sometimes it's just, hey, it is what it is. This is what I did. This is what I learned, what not to do. It's almost like when if you work I used to work at an ice cream store, and if you don't try different kinds of ice cream, different kinds of shakes or banana splits or slushies, if you don't try a bunch, you can't help other people through making their decisions. So it's like I had to go through all of those traumas so I can then help others who are going through those rape and loss of my very best friend in the whole wide world to cancer and divorces and miscarriages and abusive relationships, people who have threatened my life, to threaten my life or loved one's life, people I'm very close to, health issues. I was told I had cancer, which I do not. I don't. That was a scare, but it still was very traumatic. I mean, I was saying my goodbyes. We had a Christmas and everyone came because we thought it was my last one, or could possibly have been my last one, and everyone wanted to get together one last time. It was very traumatic. And then it turned out it wasn't even true. And I've also been through, which I know many others have suffered, not having a diagnosis. Like, you have all these things wrong. No one can figure it out. No one knows what it is. And so then you're almost chalked up to, oh, she's just making it up, or she's exaggerating, or, it's all in her head, and you're almost not taken seriously. That is a very scary thing when the medical field, I hate to say turns on you. I'm in the medical field, so I feel like I can say this, but it's almost like you feel like they turn on you.
Yeah.
They're who you're going to for help because you're suffering, and they look at you and you're just fine. And it's very frustrating. So car accidents, and I was engaged, and the day, hours before we were to get married, he broke it off. Whew, that one was a toughie. I mean, there's just been a lot. There's been a lot. But now I can talk to someone in a very personal, real, raw. I'm grateful for that now that I'm pretty much, I'm a work in process, let me tell you. But I feel like I've come basically out the other side more knowledgeable, stronger, more confident in being able to help others get through it now. I don't know if we ever really learn everything that we need to learn in any aspect. I think we should always be learning, but
yeah,
I've been through enough that I feel grateful that I can help other people. I've used those experiences to help others already on a personal level. And like I said, the gratitude of what I've learned and how I've come back on the other side. I'm like, I got to help more people. Like there's more out there than just in my inner circle. I think I take it very seriously because of that.
Yeah, it sounds like you do. I think that's important. No, I mean, it's important, and you can hear your passion. You can hear how much you want to be helpful. I think that comes across pretty clearly. You want to help.
Yeah.
And empathize. It sounds like you've gained a lot of empathy through going through all of these things. And, I have to say, I can't imagine, going through all of this and still finding like that strength and confidence. I think that's so incredible that you've found that strength and confidence in yourself to be able to move forward, to be able to keep going, to be able to like to want to help people is pretty incredible. Where do you think that strength comes from? Where do you, like, would you credit somebody with that? Would you credit yourself with that? Would you credit, something you've read or seen, or, where does that come from?
Another excellent question. See, this is why I chose you, because you are good at this. You are good at what you do.
Thanks. But I guess I'm just curious, somebody who's gone through so much, I've gone through my own things, and, I know how I've felt, and I know what worked for me, but, we all go through different things. We all experience trauma in different ways. We all experience, especially for people who, myself, I've been suicidal. I've talked about it openly. I've talked about it on this podcast, and I think I've talked to you privately about it. So I know where my limits are. I know what pushed me to the edge and what got me out of it, and why I can talk about it openly now. But, I can never say I've been through as much as you have. And I'm not saying that to take away from anybody else's trauma, or to say that, because a person has gone through so much, they're more worthy of feeling more.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. I'm not trying to say that. But,
me neither. But, I'm glad you put that out there, but I am not either.
And so I guess to me, the thing I'm in awe of, I guess, is that your main focus is to help. It's not to, there's no, I need to fix my life. There's no, I need this for me. It's, all about, I got through this. I want to help somebody else get through it. And that to me shows an incredible amount of strength and compassion. And I guess for me, it's just like, I want to comprehend where that comes from, because I want other people to comprehend it, and I want other people, myself included, to utilize it, or to try to find that within ourselves, so that we can be strong enough to help others as well.
I wish I had a one-word, one-sentence answer to that. Where did I find that strength? Some of it, like you said, is me. I had to pull it out of my own butt. Excuse my crudeness, but I had to pull it out of somewhere in myself. And part of what I realized was there isn't a one thing fix all. Mm-hmm. What I learned, I was stronger than I thought. I definitely have to credit Christ, my Heavenly Father, God. I couldn't have done it without them. I know everyone doesn't have that same belief, but for me personally, that has been a huge part of it for me, was my faith and realizing who I am to Him, and how much more important that is than really who I am to anyone else. And it was more me learning that it wasn't one person who carried me through it or was my inspiration. It took a village. I had my mother. Holy cow. I don't think this is a huge secret. My mother and I had very high highs and very low lows, but through this, she was definitely one of my rocks. We were able to mend a lot of things and work through this together. And she has been a huge part of it as well. And as the rest of my family, very loving and supportive and friends. And, I mentioned earlier what I listen to. It's more in what the little things you do every day that are probably going to make the most difference. It's going to make the most long lasting. Anyone, can go to a conference or, a TED Talk and feel inspired to make huge changes. New Year's just happened. How many resolutions do we have that already are out the window? Because it was just a one grand moment, but it's more of the habit that you do every day. What you watch, who you hang around with is huge. And not to make it sound trite, but it is so true. You are the 5 people you spend the most time with. You are a combination of those 5 people. What's normal can be really distorted.
Yeah.
And I don't think there is such a thing as normal. I really don't. Everyone's different. We're all supposed to be different. So we just need to know who we are and who we want to be. And we have to surround ourselves with people and videos and books and whatever our inputs are. We have to choose those. whether it's a comedian because I need to laugh. I can't tell you how many times I was like, I'm in a really bad place. I can't do anything. I didn't have the energy to go for a run or even draw. Like, I just had nothing. So I go on Netflix, boom, Kevin Hart. I'm laughing because how do you not laugh at Kevin Hart? I'm sorry if there's people out there who don't like Kevin Hart, but that's mine. I mean, that's one of my go-tos. It makes me laugh, and I didn't have to work for it. All I had to do was click it on Netflix, which, let's be honest, I'm on Netflix and Hulu binge watching anyway. If I'm just laying there doing nothing, I might as well be doing something that's going to put me in a better place.
Yeah.
So it's not so much the one big answer or the one big turning point. I didn't have that. It was more about learning what I needed to do for me every day, how to balance, mind, body, spirit, how to balance all of that, family, myself, and work. How do I balance that? Balance, I think, is huge, because if we are balanced, then everything else can be managed. Learning to say yes to more things, but also learning to say no to more things. For example, obviously we all hear we need to learn to say no, don't overbook yourself, don't overwhelm yourself. Very, very true, very accurate, and that is very much a part of it. But we need to learn to say yes to more things. And what I mean by that is, example, very small example, but I don't even remember. I was coming home from somewhere and I was unloading my car. I had a bunch of stuff I had to load into the house, and it was nighttime. It was beautiful. It was just a beautiful night. It was dark and the lights were shining on the snow, and there was just something very magical about it to me. For some reason, I really like being outside. And I'm loading in the car, and in my head, I'm loading the house going, man, I really should just enjoy the evening, or, I should just stay out here. And it was, no, I gotta get this, and I gotta get this in the house, and then I gotta get ready for bed. It was always my to-do list and what needs to be done. And that was in my head. And finally I was like, no, I can take 10 minutes and just enjoy it. And I've been working with physical therapy through some sciatic nerve pain. And I did my therapy outside in the snow. And then I just stood there and just in silence. I think silence is important. I think part of my story of all of these things happening and the victimhood and that I put myself in, I put myself there. Everything that I would go through, it'd be, oh, I'm fine. Oh, I'm fine. Oh, I'm fine. And I would just shove it in. And I would never work through it. I would never process it. I would just shove it down and I'm fine. And I would convince myself and others that I was fine. Some of my quotes would be like, I got big shoulders, I can take it. Or I'm tough, I'm strong, I'm built tough. And how I dealt with things was just being very busy, always busy. I was working, or I was always productive. I didn't feel like I could have just downtime. I think quiet time, even if it's just 20 minutes a day, just to decompress, that's when I get my inspiration. That's where I get my next step. My creative juices get going. That's when the real me comes out, and my problem solving skills are at its best, is when I'm not jamming out to music, when I'm not busy doing laundry and cleaning, and when I'm just silent. It's Super Bowl time. And so I'm sorry. I'm going to apologize now for all of the Patriots and the Brady haters. I get it. You're out there. Don't block me off. Tom Brady has been one of the people I look to as an example. I mean, I was a Brady fan before being a Brady fan was cool, because he played for University of Michigan, which is my favorite team of all time. I'm a huge University of Michigan fan, so I was a fan of him when he was at University of Michigan. Was he all that fantastic? No. When he went to the combine, he was the worst quarterback in almost every category in the NFL draft. He was almost overlooked completely, but he's been nicknamed the comeback kid. There's all these things stacked against him. He was slow. He wasn't very coordinated. He wasn't good under pressure when he has to scramble. I mean, his rap sheet wasn't great. And now arguably, I understand, but in a lot of people's eyes, he's the GOAT, right? The greatest quarterback of all time. Well, you agree with that, not the point. I think everyone can agree that he's very talented and has come a long way from where he started.
Yeah.
It's more about his story. It's where he came from and where he went and what he did with it. He did not have everything lined up for him. He made things happen for him.
Yeah.
You know, when people throw that hate out at him and, you know, you can't do this or this is impossible or whatever, he uses that as fuel to prove that he can.
Tom Brady is a person that he's not just an athlete. He kind of transcends sports. Well, I'm a hockey fan first and foremost. So,
okay. Who's your team?
The Avalanche.
I'm a Red Wings fan.
Oh,
being
no.
a Michigan girl and all. Yeah, I know.
So,
to be completely honest, I think I mentioned I lost my best friend to a battle of cancer, and hockey was her sport. That was her favorite, probably. Me, a very close second to football, but she was very much a hockey fan.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things we did when we got older. We went to hockey games. So I haven't been able to really follow hockey since she's passed. So I really couldn't tell you whether we're doing good or not, to be honest, because it's still kind of a very tender subject for me. And the Red Wings were her team. And so I couldn't even battle with you on hockey because I don't know.
Well, that's another great point though, you know, speaking about triggers, you know, maybe this is another trigger for you that you recognize, and it brings up another great point. You know, myself, I don't know your triggers, and I've brought up this thing to you that potentially is a trigger. And I think as people who don't know, you know, what you're going through, we do have somewhat of a responsibility to try to be not delicate, but mindful, and
respectful. I mean, there's always that, but
absolutely,
there's no way we can avoid all the triggers.
Well, what would you say, you know, to friends, family, I don't know, anybody in your circle, acquaintances, you know, anybody that might want to help or might not understand, what would you say to them? You know, things that they shouldn't do, ways they can help, ways they can best be supportive. Again,
I could probably do a podcast on that just in and of itself. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's kind of a touchy subject to talk about because I don't want people who have maybe done some of the things that are on my do not do list, do not say list.
Sure.
And they've done it, and it's well-meaning. And when we're in a better state of mind, we understand that you meant well. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's just thinking about their trigger. And we know that you don't think about our triggers as much as we do. We know that. But it's still very real to us. I actually have my list, I think, here. I have 10 things not to say to a person with PTSD, anxiety, depression, you know, that kind of genre. And I have my top 10 commandments of what not to say. And they're really simple. It's not the obvious ones. I mean, obviously, if you know someone had a miscarriage, you really probably shouldn't be talking about babies, miscarriages, deaths. I mean, there's just certain zones you know not to go to. These are just the ones that you just really wouldn't think about it. Like, I hated it when I would be having a panic attack and my mom would be like, what are you anxious about? What's going on? Like, why are you anxious? There's nothing going on. Well, that's part of our anxiety is we're anxious and there's no logical reason for it necessarily, but we feel it and it just is. We don't understand it. We know it's irrational. We're embarrassed about it as it is. We don't know a lot of the time why we are reacting the way we do. You know, you can't just cheer up. I mean, a lot of my dad, very well-meaning, would say, cheer up, sweetie. There's people in, third world countries that have it worse than you. I I knew what he meant, and God bless him for it. But we can't, if it was just that easy to just cheer up, we'd be doing it. Need to kind of step back and not dwell on it for sure, but it's just not that easy. Need to get out of the house. Or I had someone say, well, I wish I could be on disability and just lay around all day. Yeah, you've got it real tough. That one just really, that's what it looks like on the outside. And we get it and we hate it. I hate it. I am, like I said before, I was very active. I always had to be busy. I always have to be productive. Saying yes to things I enjoy doing has been something I had to learn to do. We are not just laying around because we want to. We're not having fun. The battle is in our head, and that's really hard to get out of. When it's in your own head, it's always there.
Yeah.
Just when we think we've got things under control and figured out, and we think we're doing great, one of those triggers can hit us, and out of nowhere, we have no idea why, but we are having anxiety attacks. Here's one of the things I would say to do. A lot of family or loved ones or whatever, they mean well. They don't want to push you. They don't want to make you feel guilty. So all of a sudden they stop calling. They stop inviting you to things. They start not telling you about their life and treating you very different. You already feel weird. You already feel judged, even if you're not being judged. To have your loved ones seemingly pull away, it makes us feel more disconnected to any kind of life at all, let alone our own life.
Yeah.
And feeling alone and not supported. So even if we're going to say no, shoot us a text. Hey, we're meeting up for dinner at this time, this place. We'd love you to come if you can. Still invite, still contact, understanding that there's times we want to talk about it and there's times we don't. There's times we want to be quiet and left alone, and there's times where we want desperately to have connection with someone, something.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel that last one especially.
Don't tell us we're too sensitive. We already know it.
Agreed.
We know we're being too sensitive. We know we're being irrational a lot of the time. And if we don't know it in the minute, we figure it out quickly after usually.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just need you to be a little patient. And even sometimes when I'm triggered, I can react one of two ways. I can react in a way that is very aggressive, and I attack before being hurt, or I attack before I can be attacked. In my perception, there may not be a real attack going on, but I'm going to come out hard, and sometimes I can lash out and just be ridiculous. I know that. Or there's other times where I've been triggered and I do the exact opposite. I clam up. You can't get more than 2 words out of me at a time. Sometimes I even zone out and I could be looking at the TV screen, but I could not tell you what I'm watching. Or I'm in the room full of people and all of a sudden I'm quiet, I'm zoning out, and I feel so alone. Not to take anything we do personally. If I'm lashing out because I'm trying to protect myself in my own head, don't take it personally. I'll come around and apologize. I get it. In the moment, I can't see it. It's like the red flag for bulls. Like, I see red, that's where I go. Same thing with I'm being quiet. No, you didn't say, it doesn't mean you said anything wrong. It doesn't mean you did something wrong. It doesn't mean I just got triggered. And I'm dealing with it the best way I can. Divert to more quiet because I don't want to hurt people just because I'm hurting. So I'm more so the quiet direction, but I've done the lash out thing, and don't take it personal. Yeah. If you need to take a step away from us for an hour or 3, whatever, absolutely, we get it, but don't take it personal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's huge.
Major things is unconditional love. I find that very huge and very important. Too many people, I feel, in our lives, my life, I'll just say, because I don't want to project on other people what's my issue, but unconditional love. finding those people who, no matter how low you are, how sad you are, how happy you are, the stupid decisions you make, they still love you. They may not support the decision you make. They may not agree with everything you say or do or feel, but they love you anyway. They support you anyway. That's huge. And I think it's important to find those people and hold them close, because I have learned they are few and far between. I've had people in my life who absolutely loved me as long as I was doing what they wanted me to do. But if I made a decision that they didn't agree with, or that didn't meet up to their standards in their life, then the love wasn't there. The support wasn't there. It was very conditional. You know, if you do what I want you to do, then of course I'm going to love you and help you and support you and all these things. But I don't agree with that decision, so you're going to pay for that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ignore you, or I'm going to treat you bad, or, you know, whatever the case may be. That is probably what we need the most.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think that's pretty accurate, at least for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's...
I think that...
I think it's hard for yourself, you know, to be able to weed those people out, first of all, and kind of like build your circle.
Mm-hmm.
But then also
Mm-hmm.
it's difficult for the circle you've built to kind of, whether they've been around for a long or a short period of time, to kind of figure things out too. So I think on our end, at least I found for myself, like I really need to communicate better and to be more open and honest with my friends about those things. Otherwise, I feel like it's really difficult for me to say, you know, I expect this from you if I haven't told them my expectations up front.
Right.
But yeah, I absolutely think you need to kind of build the circle around you that you want around you. I think that's really important. You have to be brave enough and confident enough to be able to do that. That's hard to do.
And that's not an easy thing.
No, not at all.
Especially when it's family members or coworkers or people that you can't necessarily completely eliminate. Sometimes you can, and sometimes you have to, no matter who they are.
Yeah.
Get them out of your life completely. Maybe it doesn't have to be that drastic, but you can kind of limit their access.
Yeah.
Whether it be how often, how long, what you do, what you talk about. I mean, you can put limits and boundaries on relationships. You have to understand that they might not react to those boundaries the way you want them to.
Yeah.
But you have to set them for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I 100% agree. For those of us that, you know, suffer from either, you know, depression or, you know, an injury like PTSD or, you know, any type of anxiety, anything like that, that really shows us that you care and makes us feel very comfortable. And I think that goes a long way itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But, you know, we did want to talk a little bit about, you know, future plans. I know you said you're writing a book, so maybe you can give us a small update on that. But I would like to, you know, hear how that's going. Yeah, I mean, let's hear
it. As far as the book goes, it has been very much it has evolved as I have evolved. This book started when I was, I would say, probably early 20s. My friend that I talked about passing away, her and I, we were inseparable. Like, we were together all the time.
Yeah.
And so she knew all of my garbage and, you know, everything up to that point. And she was like, Tracy, you need to write a book about your life. And my response is, oh my gosh, that would be so awesome. No one would believe me. Like, or you wouldn't necessarily know that I'm battling anything, because I have put on that mask for quite a while of, I'm great, everything's fine. But she knew. I went to visit her while she was sick and getting chemo. I went to visit her for about a week, and we were sitting there in her living room, and she was like, you really need to write that story. And I was like, only if you'll help me. She was like, you got it. She whipped out a piece of paper, and we started writing down things to write about. But it then became like, it was put all my garbage out there and blame everyone else, victimize myself, and make them the bad guy. And it was like my way of getting my anger out about it all. And her job was going to be to tame that down and to not hurt loved ones in my life with what I was saying. I was just venting. It was like my therapy. I vented, I put it all out there, and she was kind of working with it to make it not quite so harsh and not so pointed to specific people. Kind of want to hurt one. Then she passed, and my computer crashed, and so I lost it.
That's
and
so
as you could probably imagine, that was devastating to me. So it was like I lost the book. I lost that last part of her and the project that we were working on together. And so it was dead to me.
Yeah.
And then I remembered the last time I saw her before she passed, it was like 3 weeks before she passed. She said, "Tracy, I want you to promise me you finish the book." And then all of this happened, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So I started, I wrote, I typed out a whole bunch of stuff. It was much nicer. It was a lot less mean and more just about me and my struggles. And then I was like, I hate this. Like, I don't want to hurt people. I want to help people. But the way I was writing it was going to hurt people that I cared very deeply for. I was like, that is not what this is about. And I had been drawing a lot of these events or feelings, and I had drawn a lot of it in 2 different ways. And I loved it, and I still love it. I'm finishing the book. I'm paying homage to my dearest friend and our relationship that I respect and love and hold very deep to my heart. I need to keep that promise and finish it, but it still just didn't feel right. But it's not what I wanted to put out there yet.
Yeah.
Really kind of taking it to a personal level, what it looked like, what it felt like, what helped, what didn't help, how, loved ones can help you through it. So it's almost more of like a survival guide than what it originally started as, almost like a revenge tour. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of evolved, and I'm loving where it's going now, because it's still, this is the event. This is my truth, and it's my truth. My truth is not necessarily other people's truth, and I have to be okay with that. But it's mine, and it's the only thing I can go off of. And there may be people who don't agree with it. How my story can help others who may have had similar. For instance, one of the traumas I mentioned was I've had miscarriages, multiple. I'm not going to go to someone who has had no desire for kids or, doesn't want kids, doesn't want a family. I'm not going to go to them and trying to help me figure out how to deal with a miscarriage. You go to someone who understands because they've been through it. I want to be that person. I want to be the one that's a little further down the line. And we're still on the same journey. We are still on the same road. We are still on the same path. I just might be a little further down it. Sometimes just knowing that sometimes you just have these thoughts in your head and you're like, I'm the worst person that this is even in my head. Like, I could never tell anyone that just popped through my head. I will talk about those things because I want others to know you're not crazy for thinking that. You are not a bad person because that ran through your head. Our brains are processing a trauma. Your feelings are never wrong. No one can tell you if that's right or wrong. How you act and react about it, there is obviously better ways of responding to it than others. It is okay to be angry. I'm trying to teach this with my son right now. It's okay to be angry. We all get angry. And sometimes, our anger can be what fuels us to set a boundary or, to take care of ourselves or to, try and protect someone else. Anger is not necessarily a bad emotion. It's how we use it. And same, the sadness and despair and fear, and it is what it is. Now you just have to figure it out and then work with it how you want to work with it. So that's what I kind of want to be. I want them to understand this is normal. but you can work through it. And I don't even mean past it. You have to work through it. You can't stuff it. You can't pretend it's not there. You have to work through it. And yeah, sometimes it's scary and sometimes it really, really sucks. But if you want to get on the other side, you have to work through it. And so you have to be willing to look at it for what it is and work through it. I want to help that process. I really want to start making different videos or maybe even starting my own podcast. I don't know, but focusing on survivors or supporters. I really just want to get the word out. I really just want awareness for those who are suffering and those who are survivors and those who are helping survivors. PTSD is way more prominent than I think we know. A lot of people are suffering from it and they don't even know it. But if we can get some awareness out there, some tools, some tricks, then we can help people maybe see this. I feel very passionate about it. I really just want to help others not get quite as rock bottom as I did.
Well, I think you absolutely will be. I have no doubt in my mind, and whatever you choose to do, you have my support, and anything I can do to help. I'm very excited to see what you do and where you take this, and very, very excited and thankful to you for being willing to speak out about this and to be so honest and, as you put it, just so raw about everything. Thank you for letting me do that, and again for letting me be part of this.
I knew that it was you, and I knew you were the right person, and thank you so much for being that person.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to Multiform PTSD. I love doing this. I hope you enjoy being here too. If you do, subscribe to this channel wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss another episode. And as always, share the love and support and education. Join me every Multiform Monday for a new episode. And don't forget, we're in this together, guys. Let's do it.